Okay, so I'm going to go over a few pointers on this current energy use for the lighting audit. So I've created this spreadsheet. Your spreadsheet should look a lot like this, but maybe not exactly like this. But it's a pretty extensive spreadsheet. Some of the key components here is you want to have one section that's the current energy use, and then one section that's the proposed energy use. Another key component is each luminaire should have its own row, or must have its own row, actually. And so, for example, we have the floor. So this is again, this is just sample data. This is not has no necessarily basis in reality. But let's say we have the basement, and let's say we have a first floor, right? So then we would have some first floor stuff over here. So here's all the rooms in the basement, and you notice I have the conference room twice. I have this classroom 1 twice. And that's because there's multiple luminaires in each of those rooms. Okay, so you can see there's this type of light in the conference room, and there's this type of, luminaire. And the classroom has luminaire 3 and luminaire 2. Okay, so each luminaire needs to have its own row. And if there's multiple luminaires in a single room, there's multiple rows for that room. But you definitely want to have these columns at least. So the space type is really important because that impacts your coincidence factor and possibly other things. You definitely want to have energy, hours per week, weeks per year, whether it's manual or occupancy sensor or something in between. This is absolutely essential, this luminaire ID. A lot of this table is based on that. Okay, so these luminaire IDs, and we've gone over this, you want to have L1 through L whatever. Number of luminaires, lamp type, watts per luminaire. This is your coincidence factor. So these are really, really important. Annual demand, annual energy use, and annual cost. Those are absolutely essential. Okay, so you can sort of mix and match these, add a little more columns maybe if you feel the need. But a couple other things that are important to point out. So I have my secondary table over here. So my luminaire table. Right, so all your luminaires will have their own row over here. So in this case, I have 3 luminaires. And you can always add and subtract from this, add to it and subtract from it. But you want to have the characteristics of each luminaire, the size. If you have a model, that would be great. The lamps, the lamp type, this is essential. Watts per lamp, really important. Ballast factor, watts per luminaire. There may be other things that you want in there. And so that's your existing luminaires are here. And then eventually we're going to add the proposed luminaires for our replacements. And so these are really important because you're using these as you're referencing them over here. And so what you need to do, and I'll let you figure out how to do this, is you need to create, there's 2 things you need to do with this. So this luminaire ID column. Number 1, you need to create a drop down. Right, so you can select that. And you notice if I select a different lamp, this changes. Okay, so this needs to be limited to the luminaires in this table. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, you notice that when I change this, it automatically updates these. And so what you need to do is use the VLOOKUP. Let me type it out here. VLOOKUP function, and I'll let you figure out how to use that. But that's what you use. You notice like here, that's a VLOOKUP, okay? And so I'll let you figure that out. But basically you're using this as a reference to look up something in this table. And in order to do that, you use your VLOOKUP. So like this, which ones do I want to autofill? I'm autofilling this one. I'm autofilling this one. And then I'm actually auto-filling this one. So actually I'll get to that. Okay, so this should automatically update if you change the lamp. So notice I changed the lamp and watch everything change. Okay? And so that way, if you make a mistake or you need to update something in this table, if I would happen to whatever, let me just update this just to say, oh, that's actually a T12, right? And you notice over here on the left, any of the L1s, you notice that changed to a T12. Okay, so that's what's nice about the VLOOKUP is you can change things here, and then it'll automatically update everything in the table as long as you create your cell references properly. So that's another important thing. Another important thing is that you need to use a drop-down menu for your space type. Okay, so your space type is what's the space is used for. Okay, so you need to create drop-down menus for here. You notice I can do this, right? So I can change that to office, and that will reference. So use the VLOOKUP to reference this table and fill in some values from this table into your chart. And remember, the space type dictates the coincidence factor and possibly a couple other things. All right, so if I change this back, so this is the conference room again, you notice that some numbers over here change, right? So again, you need to use a drop-down menu. To use the drop-down menu, you're going to use data validation. And I'll just show you, it's right here. So if you go under the data tab, click that, and then data validation, and I'll let you kind of figure that out, how to do that. Okay, so that's really important and then of course these are going to automatically update. You just use some formulas in here, and that'll automatically update. So if I'm like, oh, actually they use 15 hours a week, you notice that changes my annual use and cost, right? So that should be pretty easy once you get everything done. Okay, so remember those things. So the primary table is doing your current, right now you're doing your current energy use and demand and cost, and actually, I apologize, you want to add, a lighting power density column too. So this would be watts per square foot. Okay, so that's going to be important. That should be really easy to calculate. And again, this should automatically update based if you change your numbers. Okay, so nice, thorough primary table. You have to have your secondary, your luminaire table with the luminaire IDs. You have to use these luminaire IDs to reference, some of the values in this table. I'll let you kind of figure out which of those you would reference. Create a drop-down menu for your luminaire ID. Create a drop-down menu for your space type. And then you have your other table over here with some other assumptions, and of course here's your energy and your marginal energy, marginal demand cost, which we'll look at a utility bill and change that as needed. Okay, so hopefully that gives you some pretty good insight into this, and when you're done with this assignment, you have the current energy use, the current demand, the current annual cost, the total lighting power density for the entire building.